Good morning. First off, I wish to thank both Violet and Kyle for this opportunity here to speak about reconciliation. So, thank you, Kyle, earlier for the very lovely introduction. Just a bit more about myself. I'm originally from Waigoma First Nation in Cape Breton. I went to an Indian day school from 1985 to 1993. That school closed in 1993, and the last Indian day school to close in the province was in 1997. And then I did my degrees here in Halifax, and I've been pretty much living here ever since. So, as you may know, September 30th was the first time that we had federal statutory recognition for Truth and Reconciliation, for a Truth and Reconciliation Day in Mi'kmaq. And as say many times, treaties are based upon peace and friendship. In Nova Scotia, October 1st is recognized as Treaty Day, and as well as the month of October itself is recognized as Mi'kmaq History Month. Former Grand Chief Donald Marshall Sr. declared October 1st as Treaty Day in 1986, after the Supreme Court of Canada affirmed the Treaty of 1752 in the Simon decision. Former Premier John Savage declared October 1st as Treaty Day in Nova Scotia to be recognized by Nova Scotia in 1993. All of this was decades before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which I'll refer to now as the TRC, released its final report and the calls to action. Sections 114 to 122, the former sections of the Indian Act, gave the federal government power to establish Indian residential schools and the removal of Indigenous children from their homes and families. While the last school in Canada did close in 1996, and these sections were no longer being used or enforced or acted upon, they were still in the books. As a gesture of reconciliation, in 2014, the federal government amended or repealed these sections. And this was a year before the TRC released, again, its final report and the calls to action. The TRC's report, its work, is critical and important towards the journey of peace and friendship and reconciliation, especially here in Mi'kmaq. But it's important to remember, while the TRC does have its 94 calls to action, the TRC cannot, in and of itself, be the only source of truth and reconciliation and peace and friendship within Mi'kmaq. In 1996, the Royal Commission on the, a lot of legal dates here. In 1989, the Royal Commission on the Donald Marshall Jr. prosecution had its 82 recommendations to reconcile and address the issue of a young Mi'kmaq man who was wrongfully imprisoned for 11 years for a murder he did not commit. In 1996, the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples had released over 440 recommendations in basically its version of truth and reconciliation and justice for Indigenous people in Canada. The final report of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls has 231 calls to justice. There are numerous other reports and public inquiries into Indigenous issues with many recommendations. I will not list them all. And there will be more reports and inquiries into the future as well. Much has been written by many Indigenous authors on history and what can and should be done to help address this. These inquiries and these reports, combined and taken together with recommendations and calls, create large and powerful steps towards peace and friendship and truth and reconciliation. That said, they are not the only ones. Tragedies and injustices should not have to occur for action and preventative action to take place. When 215 remains of children were confirmed this past spring at a former Indian residential school site in Kamloops, British Columbia, Canada reacted. Many Canadians wanted to learn more about these schools, what happened here, and to ensure future generations will know it too. While I do admire this and am glad that Canadians wanted to take action, remember that the TRC's final report has been out for several years now, and much has been written about Indian residential schools long before this, but it's never too late to learn about what happened. If you wish to learn more specifically about the Shubenacadie Indian Residential School in Nova Scotia, which was only 40 minutes up the road from here, then of course I would strongly encourage you to read Isabel Knockwood's Out of the Depths, which was one of the earliest accounts of Indian residential schools. This was also a book that was assigned to me when I was in grade school. The book was first published in 1992, decades before the TRC's final report and calls to action were published. The former site of the Indian Residential School is now a National Historic Site of Canada. Perhaps you may wish to visit it one day. This past spring and summer, and even to today, I do see many things that were thoughtful gestures towards reconciliation. For example, I have been seeing many more Mi'kmaq flags around on buildings. This past July, I did the Nova Scotia Marathon. I've seen houses down in Barrington Passage that were flying these flags. I saw one just yesterday up on Waverly Road. And we see them in buildings and offices. Signs and symbols. We've been hearing that every child matters. And this is, honoring the survivors of these Indian residential schools and those who didn't make it home. And I've seen these come up a lot in the spring, but I have seen it continue throughout the summer into today at schools, on the windows of houses and businesses. I continue to see it, and so do all of you. Even in Nova Scotia, a thoughtful gesture as an option of a Mi'kmaq license plate. It is still a thoughtful gesture. Likewise, we also do see the symbol of red dresses here and there, which is to mark and honor murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls in Canada, which continues to be a national tragedy today. Dalhousie Law School does offer an award, the Donald Marshall Jr. Memorial Award, which recognizes and honors Junior's legacy with criminal justice and treaty rights. All together, taken together, thoughtful acts, not legally mandated nor legislated, can and do go a long way. Yes, the law is powerful and it does a lot. The law doesn't demand that you fly a Mi'kmaq flag, but it is a thoughtful gesture on reconciliation. You are not required by law to wear an orange shirt on September 30th, but it is a thoughtful gesture and a meaningful action on reconciliation. The law does have its place for reconciliation. Many of the calls to action are to government, Parliament passing the bill there to recognize September 30th as a statutory day for the TRC and its work. I say again that the law does have its place for reconciliation, and I also say, so do you. How you learn from this, how you learn afterwards and on your own, and then how you act upon it, it is a step, it is a gesture towards reconciliation. Don't ever think that any little step you take now is too small. Because always remember that even a baby's first steps are widely celebrated and commended. After a while, baby steps become walking. Walking becomes a normal, everyday thing. Maybe one day reconciliation becomes a normal, everyday thing, something we're always walking towards. And to get there, it starts with baby steps.